Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of REVVUP. Like every week, we have a brand new guest today. Of course, you know about him. I'll definitely introduce you to him. But before that, if you're not a member of the world's largest network of professionals from the auto industry, ARPRO, immediately go down to the website mentioned on the screen and register yourself to become a free member. So, team, on this edition of REVVUP, we have Pro Suresh with us. Many of you know him already. In fact, I just saw a message today in the group that there is somebody who reports to him already in our group. So I will tell you about Pro Suresh. So Pro Suresh started his career as a trainee at Tata Motors after his engineering. And after that, he has had a fantastic career in the auto industry where he has handled multiple brands in multiple countries. So today he's here with us, sharing his experience, and also at the end of the show, you also have about time to ask him questions of your choice. So team, all of you ready and set to welcome Pro Suresh to REVVUP? Okay, so over to you, Pro Suresh.
Thank you, Shrikant. Thank you for this opportunity to meet a large group of youngsters. It's my pleasure to be here on the show.
Okay, so it was fantastic to know about you. In fact, when we met.
Sure.
So it was a fantastic career. You started off with Tata Motors as a graduate engineering trainee, and from there you've worked in multiple platforms. We would like to know how it all started. Was it a predetermined decision to work in the auto industry, or it just happened by chance?
Okay. I don't think it was predetermined. Those days when in the 80s you were either an engineer or a doctor, you didn't have too many options in terms of professional career. I did my engineering and then I got recruited by Tata Motors, which those days was known as Telco, as a graduate trainee engineer. It was a fantastic experience for me. I think Tata Motors is a kind of every professional in the auto industry at one stage or other would have been associated with Tata Motors. It was a great experience. Tata Motors gave me exposure to a wide variety of departments. So the process is that as a trainee engineer, you work in each department for about 3 months and you get to learn about that department. So, 2 years was just a learning experience. They kept transferring me from one department to another so that I get the full import of what they are doing. So it's been a great experience. I wouldn't call it was predetermined, but once I joined Tata Motors, I kind of fell in love with automobiles.
That's fantastic. So how did it happen? How did Tata Motors happen? Was it a campus placement or?
Yes. It was, my college, Tata Motors, of course, those days was I'm sure even now it was a very prized campus placement. So we had interviews of people coming to our campus, and then we were divided into different groups. There was one group which went into the engineering or the production or the flow side. There was another group which was for IT, and the third group was towards marketing and sales. So I was in the first group, which was towards engineering. So I did my round of interviews in the college, and then another set of interviews and group discussions, etc. at Pune. So the process was very nice, and the way Tata Motors or Telco used to take care of young engineers was really fabulous.
So how exactly was your experience? Or can I put it this way? You must have had some expectations before you go to Tata Motors. And what happened exactly there? How was the situation?
You see, I think when I look back at the whole process, nowadays companies when they recruit a trainee or when they recruit an engineer, they want an output from him from day one. So you are put on the job, you learn the ropes for a few weeks, and then you get on to doing real job. But Tata Motors had a different approach. They let the person kind of soak into the atmosphere of engineering. So I think we were about 50, 60 of the trainees, and we could work on projects. We could just pick up a project and say, I will spend my 2 years working on this project. There were other people who were, okay, I'm interested in this particular line of business, so I go get trained in the line of business. Frankly, the 2 years of training time in Tata Motors was, just an extension of the college. So it was a lot of fun, lot of learning, and I would say more learning than what we did in the 4 years of engineering.
That's fantastic. So you spent how many years in Tata Motors, right?
Well, I completed my 2 years of training, and then I spent a year on their cylinder block line. I was shift in charge of the production. So it was a machining line, so we had to make the cylinder block from the casting. So I was in charge of the cylinder block line for a year.
Okay. So I understand after that you went on to do your under IIM to do your further course. What inspired you to move away from Tata Motors?
Well, I think while the Tata Motors stint gave me a lot of exposure to the engineering part of it. I realized I also need to hone my skills as far as business management is concerned. So, when you do your MBA or your PGDM, you kind of get to understand all aspects of business and not just one aspect of, let's say, manufacturing or production. So, since I wanted to understand the entire business in totality, I decided to move on to do my management.
Okay. So how did it actually change your perspective towards this auto industry when you did your management course?
Well, I started understanding the business as a whole. It's just not about manufacturing of cars. It is also about what kind of products you produce and what kind of pricing you have for this product. How do you promote? So you kind of, I feel it kind of filled me up with perspectives earlier not aware of as far as automobile was concerned.
Okay. So it actually gives you the complete insight into the business, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's fantastic. So what happened after IAM?
Well, I did my 2 years of management. It was a full-time course, so I did it from Bangalore. And then again in campus, I was recruited with Maruti Udyog. I mean, those days it was Maruti Udyog. Now it is Maruti Suzuki. So I was recruited as a sales in charge for Maruti. So I joined Maruti in their regional office at Delhi, and I spent some time. Each person goes to regional office. He's in charge of a territory. So I used to handle. So those days Maruti had only 5 regional offices, which was North 1, North 2, East, South, and West. I'm sure now there are many regional offices. So those days, one used to look after a pretty large proportion of Maruti sales. It was close to 45 to 50% of the sales of Maruti used to happen in the North 1 territory alone. So I looked after different territories. I was in charge of UP, then for some time Rajasthan, then Delhi, then Haryana. So I spent about a year or two in the regional office in the north. Then I came down. I was territory in charge in the south, and I spent about, I think, 2.5 years or so in the south, looking after at various stages Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Karnataka, Kerala markets for Maruti. And then Maruti, I went back to their corporate office. I was looking after institutional and corporate sales. So Maruti was very much ahead of its time in terms of marketing strategies those days as well. Understood that fleet sales or the corporate business is going to be a substantial portion of the retail business. So they set up a separate vertical, and then we were looking after government sales, non-government sales, private sector sales, etc. So I was there for about a year and a half. I was heading their institutional sales, all India, based out of Delhi.
Okay. So your total perspective had changed by now, I guess, because you started off your career in the production field, which was your core mechanical field, and after your IAM, you actually moved on to the totally different field, that is managing your dealerships and sales, more of, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So how did you feel that difference when you were working in production and then moving to sales?
See, again, it's like when you move from production to marketing and sales, your perspective changes. You are no longer looking at the trees. You are starting to look at the woods. You kind of go up and start looking at a much larger picture than what you are used to. So then you understand what are the things that where you were probably thinking in the production stage, and how it is actually viewed by the customer at the end of the chain. So I would say that my perspective widened, and I was able to see a much larger picture of the business than what I was doing when I was in production.
Okay. So after Maruti, what happened next?
Well, I then for a year I was I joined LML as their zonal in charge for the southern region. Before I got an opportunity to be part of the startup team for Concord Motors. That was in about '98. So that was a time when Tata Motors were planning to launch their small cars, and Tata Motors felt that since many of their dealers were used to selling the trucks, they need to have the perspective of car sales. So they tied up with Jardine of UK, and they started a retail venture called Concord Motors. And our brief was to start across the nation, 6 or 7 locations where we would start a retail arm of Tata Motors. And then the Tata Motors would learn from that and try and implement it in their commercial network.
Okay. So could you give us some details on that? How was your experience in that?
It was as an experience, it was very nice because we were part of the startup team. So any startup team is extremely exciting because you are starting something from from nothing. So it in terms of building up a team, in terms of people getting to know each other. For example, when I started Concord Motors Chennai, I was the first employee for Concord Motors Chennai. So I just landed up in Chennai, and I had to go stand in the BSNL queue to get a telephone connection for my dealership. So, starting everything from scratch, getting your Factories Act approval, getting your Shops and Establishment Act approval. So it's very exciting because you have to do everything from scratch. And at the same time, you are also building up a team slowly. So we set up Concord Motors Chennai, from buying the real estate, from construction, from as I mentioned to you, getting the telephone lines organized for the business. So everything was extremely challenging. It was nice when the business got set up, and when Concord Motors Chennai came, it was one of the, I think we were the top metro dealer with the highest CSI and highest SSI amongst the Tata franchises, and we were also financially. We had some of the best returns, and in any of the parameters, we were one of the best in the Tata Motors franchise in that phase. So it was an extremely exciting and rewarding phase as well.
Okay. So it is almost like starting your own venture.
True. It was starting your own venture, frankly, and you could do a lot of the advantage was we could do a lot of experimentation in the entire process. So, for example, we had a sales head in Concord Motors Chennai, whom we had got from hotel background. So he didn't have any automobile experience, and we had a lot of sales consultants without any automobile background. So we had people who had those days worked in selling of plantations. We had people from Sterling Holiday. We had people who had not worked in automobile at all. So when you have a potpourri of people coming in, some people coming with automobile background, some people coming from non-automobile background, so there was a lot of cross learning that happened, and people learned about when you are in the Sterling Holidays, person would be more of relationship selling. He would be with the customer, try and not just go and pick up and deliver the car. So there was a lot of learning. So we had a mixture of people coming in from different backgrounds, and I think that is what really ensured that we were able to do both financially and qualitatively very well.
Okay. So what is your feeling on this? Like, do you really require people with automobile background for automobile sales?
Frankly, my opinion is you don't need a person with automobile background to sell automobiles, because you are understanding of the customer's needs and trying to understand the background of the customer is more important than understanding the product. It is important. I'm not saying that product knowledge is not important, because product knowledge gives you that confidence to be able to handle any query. But in my experience, some of the best salesmen that I have come across in automobiles didn't know too much about the product. It was more about them knowing more about the customer.
That's a very important aspect. I agree. So in sales, that is a sales in the sales department of new cars, or also sales in the after sales department.
Both in
everywhere. Yes,
I agree.
The customer relationship makes a big difference, right?
I agree. I completely agree.
Okay. So That was your stint with Concord Motors, and after that,
No, that was I mean, the first 2 years of Concord Motors was, I spent in setting up Chennai, and
okay,
then Concord Motors went through its own set of troubles because uh, Indica did not. Uh, Indica had its own set of problems in the initial phase, and so that kind of got reflected in Concord Motors' financial performance as well. So we went through tough times from 2000 to 2002 when we had to make a lot of restructuring and cutting infrastructure, cutting of manpower, etc. So in 2002, actually, Jardines exited Concord Motors, and Tata's took 100% stake in Concord. At that point of time, the Tata management offered me the position to head that business completely. So I took over as a president of Concord Motors in 2002.
that is for entire India.
That's right, for Pan India.
Okay, fantastic.
So of course that was a tough phase because we had a large amount of accumulated losses in Concord Motors, and it was we had to turn around the business, in terms of reducing our losses and becoming profitable again. So it was a tough time, as in uh, when you are with the large. I mean, at that time, I think we were about 1,500 or 2,000 people, and sometimes you have to let go of people because it is in the larger interest of the organization. Very tough, but very exciting, and we. I think I took over in um, September or October 2002. And within 6 months, we were able to cut our losses and we were becoming cash positive. And then 2002 to 2003 was, we were net positive. And so we started coming back into profitable operations in about 2 years. So that turnaround phase, I would say it was tough, but extremely exciting and rewarding in terms of learning.
Okay, that must be a really great learning, because bringing up a dealership which was running in losses to bringing back to profit, that's a huge experience, of course.
I agree. See, it's very tough when sometimes you have to sit across the table with someone and say, look, I don't think things are working out, and we need to part, and please look for a job. And so that was a tough part because there are colleagues that you would have worked with whom you would have to let go because the larger organizational needs are important. But what I learned in that period was how to cut flab. Automobile business in India is I'm talking about retail, is not a very profitable business. I mean, you make extremely thin margins and on the car as compared to what it is worldwide. And on one side you make very thin margins. On the other side, there are so many aspects of the business that you have to take care. And a slight slip up in one side of the business can actually wipe out your profit for the entire year. So I learned how to cut flab, how to put more people on the front, in terms of getting business, and how to keep the back office lean and mean, so that you survive any vagaries of the trade.
That's something really important. In fact, this is a lesson to all of us as well as team who is watching. See, at any kind of situation, there's a lot of learning for us. So if that is positive or a negative, whatever be the situation, look at the kind of learning that you can get and also look at the focus on the future that needs to be done. So this actually has helped Pro Suresh, and I'm sure there's a lot of matching with the situation that a lot of us are facing today, also during the pandemic. I am actually proud to tell that looking at the retail figures also recently released by FADA, that things have started improving only because of the positive energy that we all carry in the retail industry. So that exactly is what Pro Suresh also reciprocates in this, is what I understand.
I agree with you, Shrikant. In fact, I think if there is, I generally don't give advice because I think every person has his own journey. But one thing that I would say is that we have to embrace change. And we have to, if you don't embrace change, you will become fossil. So, at every stage, you have to see if there is any change coming, we should be open about accepting that change.
I completely agree with you on that. So we need to change with time. Otherwise, even brands, big brands like not only the automobile industry, even if you look at the tech also, big brands like Nokia is nowhere today only because they cannot change with time. So changing with time, adapting to the change is something very important. Adapting fast. How fast you adapt to the change makes you different from others in the competition.
In fact, there is this story of Kodak, which was into Kodak films and I was reading somewhere that they were actually the pioneers for digital photography, but they didn't think that digital photography will actually be anything big. And in a matter of few years, Kodak, from being one of the leading players in the camera, became nothing because they didn't adapt themselves to the new technology of digital.
Exactly. So that makes a big difference.
I agree.
Right. So how long were you with Concord totally, and what happened next?
Okay, Concord. I started my career with Concord in '98. I was there with them till 2004, and then in 2004 I got another job in the Middle East, and I went to join this company in Muscat called Al Hashar and Company, which was actually primarily into the commercial vehicle space. And I actually got the job because of my turnaround success in Concord Motors. So this company was also had lost two big brands prior to my joining, and we were also in the process of turning around that business. So I joined them in 2004 to head their entire, they had consumer durables, etc. I was heading their business.
Okay. So that was into commercial
Yeah, one
vehicles.
of course it was into commercial vehicles, and also it was an exposure to a completely new market for me. So market dynamics were different, customers were different, culture was different. So that was a good challenge, and of course we managed to turn around that business as well. And we got a lot of new brands for that business, and again we were able to turn around a loss-making company into a profitable business there.
So it's fantastic. So you have been involved in turning around a lot of businesses from profit to loss. That actually I feel gives you a lot of learning also in the field.
I agree. Because you kind of start realizing how much. What I realized was that when companies become very successful, they add a lot of flab. It's like a person when you find somebody putting on weight. They associate weight with prosperity in our country. So when you, even for companies, when you become very successful, you start adding a lot of flab, and you become huge, and you become, just like a person who's overweight has obesity, diabetic, etc. The Those companies also develop some kind of problems in so, when you have to turn around, you have to cut flab, you have to bring that company back into shape, and there are a lot of learnings. And I think one of the biggest learnings is a successful company must always keep ensuring that they don't add on flab.
That's a very important message. This gives a totally different view to the business as well, team, isn't it? So being successful, so this is something that many of us tend to skip from our view, when companies start getting successful, when it is profitable. So this is a fantastic advice that Pro Suresh has given, that, even when the company is profitable, ensure that you are not adding on flab and you are sticking to, you know, keeping the business healthy. That's something really, really important. Okay, Suresh. So let me ask you something. Since you have been turning around a lot of companies like this, so each time when you have a challenge, how do you look at it, or what do you think was the secret why you could actually turn around these companies, or what was that power inside you or motivating you to, turn around this business like this?
Uh, See, I think one of the things that as South Indians by nature are quite frugal. Okay, so I think the fact that I have been brought up in a culture of frugality. So when you start looking at the business, you start looking at what is really important for this business. Do I really need something? Let's say a flab is there. Do I really need access of the business? So you start uh, looking into every penny that is being spent, whether that is actually required or not required. And once you start looking at every aspect of the business and trying to see, does it add value to your business or not? And if it doesn't add value, what is the way you can actually get rid of it so that you keep only those aspects of the business that add value to your business? So I think it's your perspective, it's the way you look at the business and see, is it adding any cost, is it adding value to the business, or it is not adding value to the business? The moment this cost is not adding value to the business, you must get rid of that cost.
That's a very nice point to be noted. So the moment you see a cost is not adding value to the business, take away that cost. That's truly inspiring. Okay, so Suresh, so what happened next? So after your stint with Muscat.
Yeah, I spent a year in Malaysia. I was with Kia in Malaysia, uh, but actually it was for a very short stint. I thought I would go for a longer stint, but there were some personal reasons why I had to leave Malaysia and come back. So I spent a year with Kia Malaysia before I went back to the Middle East, and I joined this company called which was dealing with in the cars business. They were dealing with Nissan, BMW, and also they had Hyundai, Isuzu, etc. But I was with the business Nissan, Renault, and BMW. So I joined them, and then my brief was basically business development. So Suhail Bhawan wanted to, they're a big player in Oman, and they were looking at growing in the nearby geographies. So my task was to we set up Renault Saudi Arabia. So in 2009, we started Renault Saudi Arabia from scratch, and again, 3 showrooms, 5 workshops, maybe about 400 odd people. So the startup phase was, we had to start Renault Saudi Arabia from scratch, and we were very successful. When I left them in 2015, we were selling about 9,000 cars annually, and we had about 400 people, and it was a profitable business.
Okay. How long were you there?
I was in the Middle East, the second stint from 2009 to 2015.
Okay. Interestingly, something interesting I need to tell you is, out of all these guests who have come on REVVUP till date, most of them have either a Tata, Maruti, or a South Bhavan or Suhail Bhavan connection. So if you look at our previous videos also, you'll find most of them at least one of these connections. That's interesting to know.
I think it's right because I think Maruti and Tata Motors were kind of mother brands for any automobile professional in India. So they would have gone through that phase before coming up in life.
Okay. So after Suhail Bhavan, I think you came back to India.
Yeah, I came back to India in 2015, and I had plans of doing some teaching. So I spent some time as a visiting faculty. I was teaching in the management institutes. I was a guest faculty with LIBA, and I was teaching international marketing and product and brand management. I still do in my free time. I still go for guest lectures whenever I find time. So I did that from 2016 till about 2018, and then I kind of met Mr. Arun, who's a MD of KUN Auto Group. So I've been with him for the last year and a half, basically advising him on the automobile retail. I take care of. We have 4 passenger car brands now, which is Volkswagen, Renault, Honda, and Kia. And we have about 1,800 odd people with us in this passenger car division. So right now, I'm looking after the passenger car divisions of KUN Auto Group.
Okay. So you had a fantastic, experience. You moved on from a trainee at the automobile industry to, at the auto OEM at Tata Motors, to your experience internationally, or before that, even setting up a startup like Concord Motors, and from there, moving on to South Bhavan, and then again, Suhail Bhavan, and then to your stint with teaching members on your international marketing, and from there now back to a dealership business. So you've seen the different stages of the industry changing also. You've been with the industry where in 90s when the industry had a totally different outlook, and then from there we have moved on to today, where the entire way the working of the industry is changing rapidly in the last few months, if you see. So what are your views on this big change that's happening since last 3 months?
Last 3 decades.
No, last few months.
Okay.
Especially after the COVID.
Okay, last few months. So, obviously, COVID was a big shock for many of the businesses because nobody knew in February and March that we will be having this kind of problem in the market. So, we had great plans in February and March as to how your next year is going to be, and what is the kind of numbers and profitability that you should be looking at. So I think when this closure happened on March 22nd, even I thought it's probably going to last for a couple of weeks, and then everything will be back to normal. And but things kept on getting postponed, and things got on becoming more and more worse. And then we realized that we have to, rub off whatever we had written on the slate, and we have to start afresh. So we started again looking into the business in terms of what is, as I mentioned to you, what was considered as a normal part of the business became a flab in the current scenario. So we had to relook at that entire business, and as a change, what I see is, digital as a source for new car sales has probably gone up as a percentage of our business has gone up from 10% to about close to 35% now. So if earlier out of 100 cars we were selling 10 cars for people who were coming digital source, it has now become about 40 cars. So we are now making some changes in our own business to see how we can actually increase the digital side of the business more and more.
Okay. So with your experience, what do you feel are the flags that you see in the business today, which was, maybe before the pandemic, which has changed to flab today? What are the areas?
One is, as I see, is what you have as, let's say, if your stocking levels are X, we need to now understand what is the requirement of. You need to be able to predict sales a lot better than what you were doing before. So, for example, if before this pandemic, we were working on, 45 days to 60 days of stocking, now we have to start working with 21 days of stocking. In some cases, we even have to start working with 15 days of stocking. So which means that you need to be able to understand the customer needs better and communicate it within the chain so that we don't increase the stock levels. So as I see it, I think stocking is one aspect of the flab which we need to cut down really. And the other thing, as I see it, is I don't know how much of showroom is going to be important in the coming days. When people do a lot of digital inquiries, you could probably have a lot of sales activity happening at the customer's doorstep instead of actually the customer coming to your showroom. I think going forward, there will be a change in that as well.
Okay. So probably that's the change that we've been seeing for quite a few months. That a lot of brands have actually started bringing in experience centers in shopping malls for for a dealership. So is that the future you see?
Look, I think experience center is important, but I think now in view of the current set of circumstances, I don't think people would be going out that often as before. I don't know how things will pan out, but I think that people would start avoiding to go to a crowded place, and people would rather have the car demonstration done at their doorstep rather than going to an experience center and getting the car demonstrations done.
Okay. So that means that investments on huge dealerships will come down.
I think so. You see, in any case, in India, you have, I don't know the current set of numbers, but I would presume that big cities would probably still be contributing about 40 to 50% of sales. And, real estate in the city is really expensive. And I think, having a showroom in the heart of the city, I think will all become very, very difficult in the days to come.
Right, right. So now that you've been, I mean, of course, your team also have been taking the card to the customer doorsteps today. So what are the challenges you're facing right now? Is the customer accepting the way it is today?
See, I think more than customers, see, for me, again, taking the vehicle to the customer's doorstep is going to involve costs. Okay. Instead of me having it somewhere and bringing all the customers there, I'm going to be going to the customer's place. I think I think it will be too early to hazard a guess at this point of time how the matter will how things will shape up for the future. But I think both the dealerships as well as the customers are going to evolve and develop some kind of an hybrid model which is convenient for both of them.
Okay. So that was fantastic to know about your life experience, Pro Suresh. So before we go on to the last Q&A session, so team, we are also coming to Q&A session soon. So you can start posting your questions in the comment section. So Pro Suresh, what is your message to the members who are new in the auto industry and who want to grow in this industry?
As I said, I'm not a great fan of giving advice. My message would be for anybody, irrespective of the business or the industry that you're dealing with, understanding the customer is more important than understanding your product. And I think at any point of time, we should always be agile and flexible to understand what changes are going to happen so that we can adapt ourselves to the change. So adapting to the change and understanding of your customer, I think, are going to be extremely important for the auto retail business.
Okay. So we have some messages for you from our team who have been live on this program. So probably
Sure.
you must know Ramdev Gururajan.
Sorry, I don't recall.
Okay, so Pro Ramdev Gururajan says he had visited Korea along with you.
He had with Mr.
He had visited Korea along with you.
Okay.
I think he was also with Tata for some time in Bangalore.
Uh-huh. What is the name you said?
Ramdev Gururajan.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, but I'm very poor with names. So maybe I need to see his face to understand.
Okay, fine. So he's a member on ARPRO as well. So he was just recalling.
Hi to Ramdev, and I'm sorry for not remembering, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay. So Pro Ramdev actually happens to be a ex-serviceman and who moved on to the auto industry after that. And he worked with Tata in Bangalore for quite some time, and I think he was with Prerna Motors. And after that, he moved on to set up of. He was at Trident Motors in Bangalore, and he was a person behind setting up this beautiful training center in Trident Motors Bangalore.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he also under his leadership, there was a service advisor who went on to win the world championship at Hyundai.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have a question for you from Pro Vignesh. So Pro Vignesh says, Pro Suresh, exciting to have a 360-degree view you have on business arena. View on quality of manpower, cost configuration on manpower and MOS. What is your view on growth path and training or retaining levels for future growth? How a dealership itself can be a brand?
Very interesting. I think it is very appropriate for the current scenario as well. I think the way things are going to go forward, I think the product differentiation is coming down day by day. As in, between X and Y product or X and Y brand, more or less the product is similar. So all of them have a 2-liter engine. Them will have one X feature. Some of them will have a Y feature. But otherwise, the product differentiation is coming down. So when the product differentiation is coming down, what is going to make a difference is the quality of the retailer. So even in India, there are occasions, I mean, I don't want to take names, but there are OEMs who have actually succeeded by just changing their dealer from X to Y. Because once the product differentiation comes down, it is the value of service that the retailer is going to bring, which is going to make a difference or switch the customer from X to Y. So I think going forward, all the retailers who are extremely customer service oriented would start making a difference in terms of the performance of the brand on the ground.
Okay. We have yet another question from Pro Ramdev. He says, why does industry not look for opportunities to sell through service window?
I think it's happening to a large extent. For example, if I can take an example, I mean, the brands that we are dealing with, example would be Honda, for example. Honda lays a lot of importance on selling through service. That is, getting a reference from your existing customer who comes for service and try to sell a new car through his reference or to change his car so that he stays within the fold. I think it's happening even in Renault, for example. There is a Renault app where the customers who are current owners can actually refer their friends to it. I think a lot of brands are doing this now, but it may not be out in the open. But I think there are a lot of brands which are currently selling through service. I would say that right now maybe it's in the region of about 3 to 4%, but I think this has a potential to grow up to about 10-15% in the months to come.
Okay. We have another question from Pro Vignesh. So, can an annual operating plan that was envisaged earlier be tuned again on a realistic note for the current financial year? Your views, basis outlook, panning out. Please elaborate for the benefit of all.
It's a tough question. We do understand that the business plans that we had set out in February and March, things have really not panned out that way now. I can speak for myself. We are actually trying to see what we have lost in areas, whether we can make up in some other areas. To give you an example, let's say we had this year plans of doing 100 cars, and due to various circumstances, business was closed for 3-4 months, and it is difficult to do 100 cars. What you want to do in 12 months is difficult to do in 7 months. But what we are tuning the business now is to see that whether there are other enablers of business that we can bring in to ensure that the loss in one revenue stream can be made up in another revenue stream. That's our action plan now.
Okay. So team, we'll take one last question because we are coming to end of our time. Okay, so after that, if you have any more questions, you can actually send an email and we can forward this to Pro Suresh. So you can note down the email ID that I put on the screen right now. Okay. So that was Auto Retail Pro. That is info@autoretailpro.com. You can send an email and we'll forward it to Pro Suresh. So here we take the last question for the day. So this is coming from Pro Anil. So the question is how KUN Group is instrumental in retaining their business and finding their growth.
KUN Group is instrumental in
Anil says how KUN Group is instrumental in retaining their business and finding their growth.
See, as a group, we understand the value of people because in the retail business, I'm not making a car. Okay, a car is being made by somebody else. So what we bring into the table is the quality of our service, and the quality of service is only as good as the kind of people that we have. And we are taking a lot of effort in trying to train our people and bring the customer focus and the customer service to the top of the people's perspective. And I think that is the only way. If you retain good people and you are able to, see, people also, we need to keep training them for new aspects of the business. So as long as we keep training our people to upgrade themselves as well as retain the good people, I think that is the only way we're going to go forward for the group as a whole.
Okay. So team, with that we will have to bid goodbye to Pro Suresh for now. So it's already coming to the end of our time. So we would like to thank Pro Suresh for taking his time and sparing it with us and giving us a lot of insights into the auto industry. And of course, one of the most important points that I would take away from this is cutting flab from your business. That's something very important. So find a cost. If the cost is not adding value to your business, cut the flap there. Okay. So Pro Suresh, that was fantastic learning, and it was awesome to have you on REVVUP.
Thank you so much, Rikant. It's been a pleasure to have you interview me, and I think you guys are doing a great job, and I wish you all the success in the years to come.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So team, with that, we come to end of the session. We will meet again next week at 11 a.m. with a brand new guest again with new insights and new learning. This doesn't stop here. Of course, immediately share this video on your timeline and with your friends. This can help people in the business. So REVVUP is a program to ensure that we are always revved up to go further in the auto industry. Okay? So with that, team, goodbye to you all.
Thank you.